Welcome to the Wonder Cinema Podcast,
where we wonder about cinema.
I'm filmmaker and film critic Brian Henry Martin.
And I'm cinema historian and author Dr. Sam Manning.
Welcome to Series 2, where we'll be wondering about the remarkable story of home video in Northern Ireland.
The rise and fall of videotape, from format wars to video nasties, piracy, paramilitaries, and the wonder of the video shop.
So we want you to...
Say yes to VHS.
Welcome to episode 6. It's fast forward to the decline of VHS.
Yes, Brian, we've returned from Queen's Film Theatre, where we were for the last episode, where we watched The Princess Bride. It was a fantastic event. Everyone enjoyed the film, I think. Did you enjoy the film, Brian?
I was just amazed that people wanted to pay money to watch a film on VHS in a cinema. But somehow, the sound and vision of video brought them all together. They all came out in a warm glow. It was really nostalgic and amazing.
Well, I came out in a warm glow as well, Brian. So, yeah, a good time was had by all.
Now, Sam, I'm slightly worried that we're going to end on a negative here, but please tell me that we're not.
Well, hopefully not. I mean, we will be discussing the decline of VHS, the rise of DVD, and the eventual demise of the video shop. But like you say, hopefully we don't end on too negative note, because we want to look at the way people look back on VHS and the nostalgia that people have for it and the role it possibly still can play in today's society.
Now, one of the things that amazed me, Sam, and this is probably, I certainly, underrated this, was that it wasn't the teenagers of the 1980s like me who really fell in love with video. It was actually the kids of the 1990s. It was those children who were brought up with videos from the very beginning and played them from day one of the dawn of their consciousness. And they were out in force last week in the QFT. So, Sam, let's just talk about the 1990s, because before the fall of videotape, there was the great rise and it reached its peak.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was one of those children who grew up in the 1990s, only knowing video, growing up with VHS. In terms of when was the peak of video, it was the 80s, but also the 90s. But there were some obvious shifts during that period. So we talked about this a bit in the previous episode, that people started to buy more VHSs than rent them. So in the early 90s, for the first time, the film companies were making more money from selling through these videos rather than renting them out. So that was one of the big shifts that happened in the 1990s.
And there is one film that towers above all others when it comes to video sales, Sam, the best-selling home video of all time, with 55 million copies sold worldwide, released in 1995. What is that film, Sam?
That film is The Lion King. The
Lion King. Can you feel the love tonight, Sam?
Yeah.
Yes, we can feel the love tonight. I mean, that is extraordinary. I mean, it took $800 million at the cinema box office in 1994. Then on video in 1995, it sells 55 million copies.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I contributed to, one of those. That was a video I had in my collection. And if we go back to our episode on piracy, that was a film that was widely pirated as well. So probably many more, perhaps millions of people who owned it on a pirate copy as well.
Okay, Sam, this is your time period, the 1990s, and the top 10 best-selling videos of all time. I think all of them come from this period. So I have the top 10 here. Lion King is number 1. Okay. Now, Sam, can you give me 2 other titles that appear on the top 10 selling videotapes of all time?
Well, I'll go for 2 that I remember being everywhere when I was a child in the 90s. So the first would be Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park is number 5, correct.
Wow. And there's another one that I remember being not just in video shops, but seemed to be everywhere, sold in, I don't know, newsagents, card shops. Everyone was trying to get a bit of money from this, and that was Titanic.
Titanic is number 4. I mean, this is quite an extraordinary list. I mean, it's all kind of Disney kind of driven, all the way to The Lion King. So you've got Cinderella, Pocahontas, Toy Story, Independence Day is in there, Beauty and the Beast, Jurassic Park, Titanic, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Aladdin and The Lion King. But just talking about Titanic, obviously a big Belfast connection. It was all right when it left here and all that. When it was released on video in the UK, it sold 1.1 million copies in one day.
Wow.
1 million copies in a day, Sam. I mean, that's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, that's incredible. And you think of the money that the big film companies were making from these videos, on top of the money that they'd already made, from showing it in the cinema. And you can kind of see that in the marketing budgets that these companies were putting into promoting these films on video. You know, they were putting the same money into marketing for the video as they were into the cinema release.
So the 1990s was a boom time in terms of video sales. So the video shop, Sam, must have been also booming at this time.
Yeah, and there were big changes in terms of video shops in Northern Ireland. So we talked in the last episode about the rise of XtraVision and the fact that by 1990 they already had 70-something branches within Northern Ireland. They all remained open into the 1990s. And the biggest change was that in 1996, Blockbuster bought XtraVision in Ireland and then owned all those XtraVision shops.
Yeah, because that was an interesting thing from last week's episode, where one of our contributors, one of our interviewees, said, I was surprised you didn't mention Blockbuster. Well, because they only arrived through XtraVision, but XtraVision remained the title, the kind of shop moniker.
Yeah, that's right. So I think a lot of people might not know that Blockbuster even existed in Ireland. They might just think it was XtraVision, and XtraVision remained an independent company, which isn't the case. They bought out all the shops here, but kept the XtraVision branding because it was so familiar with people on the island of Ireland.
And Blockbuster, of course, were a huge American chain. Blockbuster and Hollywood Video were the two leading video shops in the market.
Yeah, and they really started coming into the UK in the late 80s and early 90s and penetrating the market. I mean, I grew up going to a Blockbuster. That was all I ever really knew. That's what I thought a video shop was at that time.
But there were also superstores at this time, Sam, that were selling videos on a massive scale. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so something like Virgin Megastores in Belfast. That's obviously just selling videos rather than renting them. And they had a much wider selection than any video shop would have had at that time. Do you remember going to that Virgin Megastore, Brian?
I certainly do. I mean, it was like an entire floor of video. It was like a supermarket of videotapes, and you could get anything there. And I suppose the big thing was the foreign film section was huge. Unfortunately, the prices were a bit huge as well, so you couldn't necessarily afford to buy this stuff. But it was great to go in and look at and covet and dream, Sam, that one day you would have a wall of these kind of tapes. But Sam, there is change on the horizon. And I don't think video quite saw it coming, but, and so quickly that the market would change. So what kind of happened here?
Yeah, there were a few different things that happened in the 1990s. So we've talked about the fact that people were buying more videos rather than renting them. There were more places to do that. In the early 1990s, you have things like the rise of satellite television for the first time. So people can watch the new releases on Sky TV, for instance, rather
Movie
than rent
channels,
them.
entire channels just filled with movies day and night.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, you have new formats. So, most obviously, the rise of DVD in there.
Don't mention it. Oh, no.
Yeah, which is something that actually been on the cards for quite a long time. There's a clip from UTV in the late 1980s saying video discs were the future of watching films, but it obviously kind of took quite a while for them to be released into the market.
Yeah, and obviously back in the 80s, there were laser discs and, CDs came along in the late 80s, and it was only a matter of time before DVD arrived. Now, DVD stands for Digital Versatile Disc.
Correct, yeah.
Now, that's my first point of contention with DVD, Sam. To me, is it versatile? Is it more versatile than a videotape? I mean, my big thing about DVD is that you couldn't record from the television with DVD when it first arrived. But Sam, I know you grew up with DVD. Tell us what was great about DVD. What did DVD bring to the table here?
Well, as someone who, as a young child, had grown up with VHS, I thought that everything was progressing forward and that technology was always going to be better than what came beforehand. When DVDs came in, I saw better quality picture. Extra features, which were often included on DVDs, were a real bonus that wasn't something that really was included on VHS. So for me, those were the things that attracted me to DVD.
Yeah, and I think that's fair enough. I mean, one of the downfalls of video goes back to the video shop itself with those stickers that were put onto every rental tape, which is please rewind the tape. Because the time it took to rewind the tape was just dead air. It was lost life. When a tape was rewinding, there's nothing you could do. You had to do it in real time. Whereas DVD's move to the future was to have chapter selection. So you could jump around, and that was going to be the way forward. I mean, we talked about video in the first episode being being chunky and clunky and just a lump of plastic with a bit of magnetic tape in it. I always felt that DVDs, like CDs, were quite flimsy. Just a little piece of plastic that was easily scratched or broken. But was that your experience with them?
Yes, they did get scratched quite a lot. I think I've missed whole chunks of films just having to skip forward. Because you would be watching something and it would suddenly stall because I'd somehow managed to scratch the disc. So I do think, looking back, that VHS was a much more durable format than DVD.
Sam, so in terms of this transition then, a bit like the transition from Betamax to VHS, it seemed to happen quite quickly. So when is the end of video in all of this? Because obviously Titanic comes out in video in 98, 99. So even at the turn of the millennium, videos are still strong in the market. So what happens here?
Yeah, it's a very swift decline. DVD wins quite quickly if there is a competition between those two formats. To the extent that one of the last VHSs released was History of Violence, which came out in 2005, 2006. That's only in a period of 8 years. You go from Titanic selling millions of copies on VHS to it then becoming a completely defunct format.
And of course, what's ironic about all of that is History of Violence is David Cronenberg, and he was one of the pioneers of video with Videodrome back in the early 80s, was one of the cult films that everybody wanted to see on video. So it's very fitting that Cronenberg is the last film released on video. And then, Sam, of course, one of the great selling points for video was that you could record from the television. That was from the very first day that video kind of arrived, and suddenly that stopped as well.
Yeah, and if we're comparing VHS to DVD, I think that's definitely one of the ways in which VHS can be seen as a better format. This idea that you could record from the television. You could buy DVDs or DVD recorders, but I don't know anyone that had one. I never had one, whereas VCRs were completely ubiquitous. Every household had one, so I think that was a real loss. And even people who had VCRs, by 2009, they were then no longer able to record things off the television because the broadcaster switched from analog to digital signals, which meant that you couldn't then record onto a VHS.
Yeah, and it's so funny that because that should have been a momentous moment when that was switched off. There should have been riots in the street, Sam. And actually, I wasn't even aware that had happened. We suddenly had a smart TV. But was it really that smart? That would be my question. But Sam, in all of this kind of melee, what happened to the video shop? What was going on with it?
Well, obviously, as people started to rent fewer VHSs and DVDs or buy them from different places, the video shop started to struggle. They had tried different ways to diversify, so I remember in the 1990s that you could rent video games at that point. I remember renting games for the SNES that I had and the original PlayStation. So they tried to adapt to the times. And in Northern Ireland, there were some more unique ways that video shops tried to provide for their customers. So, Brian, I've got an advert from Video City here, which is a local chain in Northern Ireland. And the advert for Video City says, "Pay as you tan, the tanning studio only at Video City." So you could go, walk in, go to your sunbed, get your tan, then go out and rent the latest release.
I mean, that's fantastic, isn't it? So you could rent Jean-Claude Van Damme and look like Jean-Claude Van Damme at the same time. I remember going into XtraVision at this time, and actually the films were shrinking in the shop. It was a strange experience. They always had the popcorn machine, so there was a smell of popcorn, but it was mainly games seemed to be driving the market towards the end of XtraVision, and they were selling consoles and they were selling controllers, and you could swap games, and certainly the games industry seemed to be what was thriving at this point, and nobody realized that all of this was going to go online, that it wasn't just video here that was finished, but DVD was finished, and so was games. Physical games were going to finish too.
Yeah, and it was a real missed opportunity for companies like Blockbuster, who didn't diversify into that streaming market, and they were overtaken by people like Netflix, who originally acted as a postal service where you could get
for DVDs.
For DVDs, you could get them posted out to you. But once they went online, that was really the death knell for the video shop.
And they made that pivot very quickly once they realized that the sea change was going to go online. They pivoted out of DVDs. But Sam, can we pinpoint when the closure of the last video shop in Northern Ireland was?
Well, we know when XtraVision closed. In 2016, it had 11 remaining branches, which all closed at that point. It had been struggling on for a few years, and Blockbuster had sold it to various different people, but then the last branches went away in 2016. Apparently they did have some vending machines, which lasted until 2021, but I don't remember ever seeing any of those. I don't know when the last independent video shop in Northern Ireland closed. I mean, when do you remember last going to an independent video shop?
I honestly can't remember when it was. I mean, I'm actually amazed that XtraVision lasted until 2016. That feels incredibly late. But maybe it, again, was the games that were kind of fueling that and keeping it alive. Wow, that's quite something, isn't it? It's just, so it's all gone. Is it all gone now, Sam? Is there nothing? What is the landscape out there now?
Yeah, as I understand it, there are no video shops remaining on the island of Ireland.
On the whole island?
On the whole island. I mean, I'm very happy to be proved incorrect on that. So if anyone does know of any video shops that remain open, please do let us know. There are a few video shops remaining in the UK that are kind of keeping the flame alive. So places like 20th Century Flicks in Bristol. And they also act not just as a place where you can rent videos, which you still can, and DVDs, but they're social spaces where people can gather and talk about films. They have screening rooms. Their aim is to have that social function that we talked about in the previous episode, to bring people together to talk about film, which was never really the intention of video shops when they first started, was it? It was a business. It was a place to get these videos. That idea of it as a social space kind of emerged throughout the years.
But we saw it last week at the live event. I mean, 100 people came to watch a video in a cinema for that very reason, for the social collective. The streaming services, as great as they are, and they're here, we can't actually rewind. We can only fast forward into the future. But we do so much of this on our own that this idea of doing things as an audience, as a group, as a community, as live events, you can see the attraction in that.
So my question would be, why can't we have somewhere like this in Northern Ireland?
Yes, Sam. Why can't we?
So if any mystery benefactors want to get in touch to offer some money so we can open our own video shop as a social space to watch VHSs, then obviously please feel free to get in touch.
Well, the great thing is, and we know this because we've been part of it, there are cinemas and film groups that are showing VHSs again. People are wanting to see films in this format again.
Yeah, I mean, we know that from the event that we hosted at Queen's Film Theatre. You hosted a similar event a couple of years before that, where I believe you showed a couple of John Hughes films.
Yes, I did.
At the time of recording, Ormo Community Cinema have a screening of Evil Dead coming up, which they're showing on VHS. So it seems like it's at least having a small moment where people want to come out of their houses into public spaces to watch VHS.
So, Sam, why do you think we are nostalgic about VHS, and what does that say about us? Is it like vinyl, like I say all the time, Sam, that it's the vinyl of cinema, or is it just a childhood illusion?
Well, I think for people old enough to experience it the first time round, there's definitely nostalgia for a lost format. I think, personally speaking, I do get a bit fed up with some of the streaming platforms that seem very led by algorithms that don't really have a wide choice, especially in terms of older films. Platforms like Netflix have very few films made before the 1990s. So I think there is definitely a nostalgia for a place that you could go to and see the whole of film history presented in front of you.
I think that's a really important point, Sam. What is the breadth of our film choice? Now, if you can afford to subscribe to all the streaming services, then, maybe you can watch everything, but who can afford to do that? And if you only have one or two, there's certainly a huge sway of cinema that you never get introduced to, that you would stumble across in a video shop and even look at a cover of a Jacques Tati film or whatever it may be, Akira Kurosawa, or where are those films on any of these streaming services?
I mean, there are still obviously streaming services like BFI Player or Mubi, but it feels like if you want to be able to watch a more diverse range of films or films from cinema's back catalogue, then you have to subscribe to multiple different streaming services. Alongside the things like Prime or Netflix if you want to watch new releases as well. So it then becomes very, very expensive.
Yes. Well, look, we're not going to be negative, Sam. Remember, we are going to be positive. Okay, so we've lost the wonder of the video shop, and streaming versus physical media. I mean, we've lost something there, where you're not able to physically hold the film in your hand. And I know people are still holding on to their DVDs because if the streaming services switch off tomorrow, I mean, you can download or buy films, but if they switch all of that off, it's all gone. There is something about having something physical in your hand.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I love that idea of having something tangible and being able to hold it and to see the artwork and even the blurb on the back. I think that's something that is a bit lost now. I also, when I was younger, I loved the idea of going round to someone's house and seeing all the VHSs and DVDs that they had on their shelf.
It said a lot about them, Sam. It said a lot about them.
Yeah, maybe I did judge some people on their taste, but it is a great conversation starter, isn't it? If someone has a shelf of videos or DVDs, you can say, I've seen this. This is one of my favourite films, and I don't think we have that so much now.
No, we certainly don't. I mean, we share in very different ways. So looking back, Sam, I mean, we started this journey to explore the rise and fall of video in Northern Ireland. And, Northern Ireland went from war to peace in that time, and video, rose and fell in the very same period. But how do you think video, Sam, shaped the way we watched, understood, and appreciated cinema?
Well, I think for all the reasons we've talked about in the previous episodes, it completely changed our relationship with how we view media. We could stop, rewind, pause for the first time. We could rewatch films multiple times. It shifted cinema away from something that only took place in a cinema to being able to watch films in a variety of formats in the way that you want to watch
on your
them.
phone.
Yeah. I've never watched a film on my phone. I'll say that, Brian.
Okay. And Sam, one thing that I think is really underrated about video is it was a film school for many people who weren't able to go to film school. And like for me, I mean, I've joked about watching, the opening of films 100 times and stuff, but I really did do that. And I think I learned a lot from that. And it wasn't just me. There was a whole generation of filmmakers who learned their craft by watching home videos, the most obvious example is Quentin Tarantino, who worked in a video shop and was undoubtedly influenced by the videos that he watched again and again and again. But I think a whole generation of filmmakers came through like that. And they didn't go to film school necessarily. Video was their film school. Sam, we are at the end. We can't go back. We can't rewind. It's happened. It's over. But I suppose we just, in this series, just wanted to recognise an undervalued area in terms of cinema, and certainly in this place, Northern Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really important story about the social history of Northern Ireland, the whole idea that this took place against the backdrop of the Troubles. And I think at the very least, if we've opened up a conversation about how people's viewing habits have changed over the past 40, 50 years, then I think I will leave this this podcast happy. And hopefully it has given people a chance to reflect on their own experiences watching VHSs. And hopefully it leads to some people watching a few more VHS tapes in the future.
And the irony of all of this, Sam, is we've reached the end. And at the beginning, I was delighted to be at home and to watch videos. And now I want to go out. I want to go back out again, Sam. And that's what I would encourage people to do. If you want to watch a video, do it like we did, Sam, with an audience, because it's great fun. And so let's leave our houses again. That's what we're saying, Sam.
thank you everyone for listening to Say Yes to VHS.
Our theme music is by Score Draw.
The Wonder Cinema Video Shop
Is now closed.